So thank you for joining us in. What can you tell us about organizing such a big event here at Con?
It's organized between a lot of different groups. We call it the Mars Ace collaboration. So obviously the Gender Museum is the core organization that's putting this program together, but really all the different things you see in the program are organized by a lot of different feminist activist groups from all different places in Aarhus. So it's kind of a collaboration actually. And then I'm the person, I guess, who has to hold on to all the strings and get all the different inputs to match up and see to that everyone who wants to join are in the program.
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Good. So I think all of us are gathered here today to show our support for the International Women's Day. We show our solidarity with women's struggles all over the world. And on that note, I am here today to represent Aarhus Krisecenter, a shelter for women and their kids who have been exposed to domestic violence. A domestic violence shelter is one of the many examples of a feminist initiative that has become a very important part of society, starting with the women's movement and the slogan, "The private is political." But unfortunately, the demand for shelters is not less than it was in the 70s. Approximately 38,000 women are exposed to domestic violence in Denmark every year, and approximately 2,000 women will be enrolled at a shelter. That means that 36 women will live a life in violence. Some might be able to get out of it, and some don't. I have heard stories that I could never have imagined, stories that made my heart heavy. But I also see strong women fighting every day. Women that have been degraded in countless ways but are rising with a power like never. And if you ask me, the private is not just political. It is also our responsibility as fellow humans to take a stand and to act on that small gut feeling you can have. Both when it comes to your own private relationship, but also the ones you witness around you. You might know what I'm talking about when I refer to that little nagging feeling in the stomach you can have when you know something is wrong. Sometimes you might not know how to assess it, thinking that you might cross a private sphere or something, but we need to help each other in acting when the red lights are blinking. I'm just going to highlight a psychological violence method that is commonly used in an abusive relationship. It's called gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of manipulation, and it's a covered type of emotional abuse where the abuser misleads the target, creating a false narrative and making them question their judgment and reality. This can be a very slowly process, which means that the abuser's target might not be aware of the slow manipulation that is happening. And gaslighting can sound something like, "I never did that. I didn't say that. It's your fault. I was just joking. You need help. You're so emotional." Almost 4 out of 100 women have been exposed to psychological violence from a current or former partner within a year, and 6 out of 10 homicides of women is a close relation. I will encourage you to act on that gut feeling, to take that conversation, even though it can be tough. Violence is never okay and it's never your fault. In Aarhus Krisecenter we can host 14 women and their kids. We have a specialized kids team who make sure that both the mother and the child feel safe and seen. And we work around 2 core principles: security and presence. You can also always call the national hotline if you know someone or you need some guidance. The number is 1888. You're also very welcome to find me and ask me questions. Thank you.
how important is for you the 8th of March? Like, as a woman, how do you feel like that? Do you feel like it's a date that is really needed? Do you feel like it's not so needed anymore? Like, how do you feel about that?
I think it's the best day of the year, absolutely. And I think it's super important. As a woman, sure, it's important, but I also do feminist activism all year round. So from that,
like personally?
Yes, and a lot of other people too. So from that perspective, maybe March 8th is not the most important, but as an activist, I find the day extremely important because it's one of the best days of the year for mobilizing. A lot of people who are not usually activists, they come out and they do stuff on this day, and it's the best place to get people involved in doing more continuous activism and be more committed to these different activist courses, and that's really important. So as an activist, I think March 8th is definitely one of the most important days we have during the year for feminism. Exactly, and it's also the day where people are more inclined to listen to feminist agendas, and it would be better if they would do that all year. Yeah. But at least it's a starting point for getting some people interested, or catching some people who maybe were not that interested before.
Why did you decide to come here to Con today?
Well, I saw on Facebook the program, and I thought there were a bunch of interesting workshops and talks here. I came to actually hear there's a talk about the consent law in Denmark, but that was cancelled. So that was a little bit.
Because she got
threats.
Yeah.
Threats.
So.
Yeah.
Security reasons.
So. Yeah, now I'm just gonna go around, check out some of the workshops, and then join the march later on.
Mm-hmm. So this was the main thing that you came to see. Was it also the march a big part of your interest?
Yeah.
On the program.
But I guess some of the workshops are in preparation for the march, so they're kind of connected like that.
So do you know which workshop would you like to try?
I saw that you can make a banner or a badge. I'm not really sure exactly yet what I'm going to be doing, but I'll be checking most of it out probably.
Okay. And do you usually celebrate Women's Day?
I don't know if I celebrate it. I think this is maybe the first year that I've actively gone out and taken part in it. Mm-hmm. I might have done something other years, but this is the most active I've been on this day.
Okay. And how do you feel about this day?
I think it's good, and I think it's interesting. I think it raises a lot of interesting points and politics that I don't know a lot about. So I think it's interesting to learn about it.
So I feel like it's a good day to learn more about what women are fighting for instance.
Yeah, for sure, and that also I get for the most part what we're fighting for, what women are fighting for, but the different means of achieving what they're fighting for, I think, is interesting because there are obviously different perspectives on how to achieve the goal.
Have you thought about contributing more actively for it, like joining a group or something?
I don't really know of any groups I would join. If I just recently went to a lecture at the university about feminist economy, which I found very interesting with what's her name? I'm blanking on her name, but it was very interesting.
And what do you mean by feminist economy?
It was more about how the economy, how we can tailor it more towards being contributing to equality, versus now that the economy is a big part of why there is inequality between men and women and others.
Like the wage gap?
Yeah, exactly. So it was about explaining maybe sort of why it is. And Emma Holten, that's her name, she talked about also something called reproductive labor. All the labor that mostly women historically have been doing that isn't actually something you get paid for.
Yeah, like
which
taking care of the house.
is like a part of the economy that you couldn't do without, but it's not rewarded in any way, really.
Do you have any other thoughts on this, like regarding Denmark? How do you feel like Denmark is doing about gender equality or inequality?
I think we're doing generally, compared to a lot of other parts of the world, we're doing pretty well. We're pretty good. But I think Danish people have a tendency to be content once they've reached like a certain level of equality, and then they can always point to other nations and say, "Oh, we're doing much better than them, so there's really no need for us to fight any further." And I think that's a problem that people think that, because I think there's always room, obviously, for improvement, which you can see if you walk around here and notice some of the problems that are being highlighted.
Okay. And did it ever happen to you that your female friends complain about something in specific? It's something that you didn't really notice that was happening before, but then you understood, like, oh, okay, this is actually...
Yeah, probably. I can't really think of a specific example, but I'm sure that happened lots of times.
Okay. And what about Men's Day? What are your thoughts on, on that day?
I just now found out that existed, I think. How serious is it? Is it like kind of like a counter, like almost like a protest day to
It's not a protest.
like men's rights activism?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's not necessarily one against the other. It's
Okay.
one, it's about celebrating women, and the other one is about celebrating men. But that doesn't mean that you're putting women down on Men's Day, or you're putting men down on
Okay,
Women's
I think
Day.
it sounds. Now I'm giving my opinion on it, knowing nothing about it pretty much, but it sounds a little bit ridiculous to me, because obviously Women's Day is born out of like struggle and oppression, and it exists to try and make everybody equal. So it seems a little bit counterintuitive almost that there's a men's right. It just seems unnecessary to me.
Like, for instance, it's in the 19th of November, and Con also had like this type of event back then, not as big, but also like with a lot of lectures and everything. And things that were approached were like domestic violence and like aggression against men, that sometimes it's not so heard. Do you feel like, as a man, if you would have to talk about this situation happening to you, do you think it would be different than if you were a woman?
Would, because there's a certain probably double standard there, and I think if on Men's International Day, that if the focus is on, for example, how men, I think suicide rates for men are higher, because usually men have like a harder time talking about their feelings because of societal pressures, and I think sometimes I don't know how much this is in Denmark, but I know in other countries, like in divorce courts, it's usually harder for the father to get custody of the child on virtue of him being the father. So those are obviously also problems
Okay.
that need to be addressed.
Okay. Thank you. Do you feel like you would like to add something else, like maybe your experience, something else that you would like to add?
I don't know. I think lately, one of the big problems in Denmark is in the nightlife, and also in the news lately. It's been very covered a lot because of someone who got killed, and I think it's a big problem. I've worked in a bar for 2 years, and I see like almost no attempt to make it a safer space for anyone, no matter who you are, pretty much. Well, I think in the nightlife, it's mostly people who are a part of the LGBT community, or women that have like the hardest time and are being discriminated against. But I know a lot of young men also feel unsafe at night, and I just don't see anything being done about that. Mostly, some places here in Aarhus have been more like proactive about speaking out about it, I think, which is nice. I think more places should do that.
Can you give us an example?
There's a place in right down here in Mejlgade called Super, where before you can go in, there's no bouncer there. So there's just a person working there who stands like at the entrance, and then they ask you for your ID, and then they need to make sure that you comply with or subscribe to the agenda that they have there. And there's like a sign on the wall that says this is a place for everyone. We don't tolerate any discrimination based on sex or race or whatever. And there's like a whole list, and you have to like tell them that you agree with those things before you. That's something they just recently implemented. The signs have been there for a longer time, and I think that's a very interesting and helpful way to, because I can just like the vibe there when you go in there. It's just different because it just feels safer. I don't really generally feel unsafe myself when I go out, but I know a lot of other people do. So I think it's a very good initiative.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hola. Det her bliver på dansk. Det kan være okay, og ellers må I reach out after, but yeah, in Danish. So this is the end slide.
Sorry.
But you're welcome to contact me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Fedt.
Okay, thank Global Goals World Cup er, hvad jeg skal snakke om i dag, og jeg skal forsøge at overbevise jer om, at det er meget mere end en fodboldturnering. Og det har jeg 10 minutter til, og det er derfor, det bliver på dansk. Fordi skarpt. Okay. Så jeg vil gerne starte med at sige, at det er et sportskoncept, som er udviklet i 2015 af danske R, efter FN's verdensleder bestemte sig for, at de her FN's 17 verdensmål, som vi skal udbrede og arbejde for. R er en forening, som bruger sportsfællesskabet til at arbejde med verdensmålene. Det gør de globalt, og de har siden 2015 været i 18 lande, og 600 hold har spillet med i den her turnering. Og så det er bare lige for at sige, kæmpe reach, det er altså globalt. I 2022, i år, der bliver det spillet i Danmark, i Norge, Saudi-Arabien, Palæstina, Nigeria, Marokko og Colombia. Og det, der er spændende for os, det er jo, at vi i Permasport har fået hævet det til Danmark, og fået hævet det til Aarhus for første gang. Så derfor vil jeg lige lydkort sige, hvem jeg er, og hvem jeg repræsenterer. Undskyld, mit navn er Clara, Lucia Tønnesen, ja. Og jeg er medstifter og en del af det her Permasport crew. Vi er nystiftet, og vi arbejder for bæredygtighed og sport. Og derfor er det sindssygt oplagt, at vi har hævet det her koncept til Aarhus. Jeg er fodboldkvinde og har spillet fodbold hele mit liv, brænder for det, og det er derfor vores første projekt oplagt er kvindefodbold. Okay, Permasport. Kan vi høre meget mere om en anden god gang? Okay. Så mere end en fodboldturnering. Det er ikke det bedste fodboldhold, der vinder den her turnering. Der er et pointsystem, som gør, at det er altså fire forskellige elementer, der udgør pointsystemet. Fodbold er en meget lille del af det, men en fodboldfest, en fodboldfejring, og jeg tror også på, at det er fodboldfællesskabet, der kan skabe magi. Så gælder det om at hive fans til, og man kan dukke op i fedt kostyme eller fodboldtøj. Meget gerne bæredygtigt. Og så handler det jo om handling. Fordi vi skal skabe lokal handling. Vi skal ud og samle alle vores stemmer. Vi skal ud og samle alle vores stemmer, alle vores projekter. Jeg giver jer altså bare en platform, hvor vi kan spille hinanden gode, og hvor vi skal på en rejse nu her, og hele foråret og hele sommeren. Og så skal vi til slut spille fodbold og fejre, og inspirere hinanden, motivere hinanden, og så snakke om, hvad er det for nogle projekter, vi så i Global Goals World Cup regi har udviklet. Og jeg er mega glad for at stå her i byrådssalen i dag, fordi Global Goals World Cup til sommer bliver åbnet af Julie Birk her i byrådssalen. Og det bliver bare mega fedt, og jeg er simpelthen så glad for, at den er på plads. Så et sportskoncept, der starter nu, og holdtilmeldingen er åben, og så byder jeg jer op til at samle et hold af kvinder. Mellem 5 og 8 kan spille med på et hold, og så skal man vælge et verdensmål, man spiller for. Og så skal vi lege med hinanden hele foråret og larme omkring alle de her verdensmål, og til sidst skal vi, som sagt, fejre det. Og så siger I så, måske, hvis I er lige så kloge som Julie Birk, det var det, jeg afslørede før,
Når jeg beder jer om at vælge et verdensmål, så kan nogen tænke, klar, det er ikke et mega skarpt spørgsmål. Og nej, det kan I have ret i. Jeg citerer lige Julie, som jeg har spurgt. For mig giver det egentlig ikke mening at udvælge kun et af verdensmålene, for det er de samlede mål og det sprog for forandring, de skaber sammen, som gør en forskel. Men hvis jeg skulle vælge et yndlingsverdensmål, så skulle det naturligvis være det om kønnenes ligestilling. For ligestilling og bedre forhold for piger og kvinder verden over vil afføde så mange økonomiske, sundhedsmæssige og værdimæssige fremskridt for alle. Ja. Og Julie har jo helt ret i, og det er faktisk hele pointen med FN's verdensmål, at de er uadskillige. Og det synes jeg også, at den her bold viser rigtig godt. Så arbejder man med et verdensmål, så vil man finde ud af, at man dykker ned i mange flere af dem. Men jeg vil alligevel opmuntre jer til at vælge et, og tage det som udgangspunkt og indgangsvinkel til jeres arbejde med et verdensmål. Og Julie Birk har jo fået til at kommentere, fordi hun er en af vores ambassadører. Vi har et meget, meget stærkt ambassadørkorps. Så jeg har et projekt, og jeg vil kaste bolden op til jer og håber, at I vil komme med jeres projekt og slå det sammen med mit, så vi kan larme sammen. Mit projekt er kvindefodbold. Og det er også derfor rammen ligesom af den her fodboldturnering, og det er derfor noget af det, jeg brænder for at gøre med den her, er at give stemme til kvinder i fodboldens verden. Og derfor er en af vores andre ambassadører, Katrine Pedersen, som er AGF's cheftræner. Og i dagens anledning har Nordic Sports Lab, de har kommet ud med et portræt af Katrine Pedersen. Virkelig opmuntrer jeg til at læse det. Det er så smukt, og jeg bliver helt rørt over, at den er blevet forfattet i dagens anledning. Og tak til Nordic Sports Lab. Jeg har lige et citat med fra Katrine. Okay. Det er sådan en af hendes hovedpunkter. Vi skal ikke have ligestilling ved at kopiere den hverdag og det setup, herrespillerne har. Vi skal være professionelle og dygtiggøre os på vores egen måde. Hvis min datter skal se ind i en fremtid, hvor hun bliver mødt med samme anerkendelse og respekt, som min søn gør i forhold til fodbolden, og hvis hun skal have de samme muligheder for at dyrke sin sport, og tro på, at hun kan blive rigtig god og få en karriere, skal vi tænke anderledes. Vildt fedt, og professionalisme og anerkendelse i sportens verden, og nu lokalt i AGF kunne være vildt fedt at bidrage til at snakke ind i og oplyse om. Og derfor er Katrine ambassadør, og derfor er vi gået i samarbejde med AGF. Så vi kommer til at larme sammen. Så igen, jeg kan ikke understrege det nok. Det er ikke elitefodbold, og det er ikke kun for folk, der kan spille fodbold. Der er mange, der har debut, når de spiller med i Global Goals World Cup. Og derfor er en af vores andre samarbejder, DFUNK, som åbner op for deres kvindefodboldfællesskab. DFUNK er Dansk Flygtningehjælp Ungdom, som har et fodboldfællesskab for unge med uden flygtningebaggrund. De åbner op, så når I melder jer til den her turnering nu, så har I mulighed for hele foråret og hele sommeren at spille med DFUNK, som spiller fodbold for sjov. Så jeg har bedt Natasha om en udtale, som også er ambassadør. Og I kan jo se, altså der er en grund til, at de her ambassadører er ambassadører. Det er fordi, vi vil det samme, og vi kan spille hinanden gode. Og ja, det er bare virkelig, virkelig smukt. Jeg citerer igen. Vores fællesskaber er for alle, og når vi ser meningsfulde partnerskaber, så slår vi til. Det er vigtigt for os at skabe så lav barriere for deltagelse som muligt. Når vi åbner vores træninger op, så bidrager vi med et fællesskab til dem, der måske ikke ellers har et, eller har mulighed for at udforske kærligheden til fodbold. Ja, så det er virkelig bare et stort skulderklap til os. Men altså sådan, det spiller ind i DFUNKs værdisæt, og det er så fedt, at vi kan gøre hinanden gode. Okay. Det er vores ambassadørkorps, som jeg er super stolt af, og vi kan godt lige nå vores kick-off-video, tror jeg.
This is about scoring goals. Goals for making change.
Goals for our future.
Or goals for better leadership. Goals for a better climate.
Goals for taking action.
Goals for equality.
And having fun!
Goals for integrity.
Goals for you. And me.
And me. Goals for all of us.
Global Goals World Cup is coming to Aarhus.
And we would love for you to join in and help us reach the global goals by 2030.
Let's do it together. Let's change the rules of the game.
Register your team and participate in this global event where the best teams will promote their cause. And don't worry, you don't have to be professional to join.
If you want to know more about this game-changing revolution, check the link and start scoring goals for a great cause.
Ja. Ej, der må jeg bare sige, jeg er simpelthen så glad for den scene, hvor Julie hun lige kaster bolden til Natasha. Men også fordi, at altså, den udtrykker bare så skønt og dejligt, hvordan vi ligesom skal spille hinanden gode. Og derfor kaster jeg også bolden op til jer i dag. Med Julie, med Natasha, med Katrine. Ja, og det er dem, der spiller med, der allerede har grebet bolden. Yes. Og her er resten. Vores plakat, som I også, den er lige blevet færdig i går af vores fine designer. Så den kommer I til at se forhåbentlig fra nu af. Og så vil jeg i virkeligheden bare opmuntre til call to action. Så hvis I på nogen måde kan se, få en smagsprøve på, og blive lidt mere nysgerrig på, hvordan kan vi spille hinanden gode, hvordan kan vi gøre det her sammen, hvordan kan jeres projekter spille ind i mit projekt. Så rammen, kvindefodbold, jeg vil enormt gerne give kvinder i sport stemme, men det kan vi, altså vi kan spille det gode, jeg kan gøre det sammen med jer, og jeg kan sætte fokus på kunst sammen med dig, Bea, og jeg kan sætte fodbold på musik, og det behøves ikke nødvendigt, det kan være kvinder i musik, men det kan også være alle mulige andre takes og budskaber, I gerne vil have frem. Så hvis I tør at spille fodbold med mig, så glæder jeg mig til at høre fra jer. Det var vist det. Kammersport og Global Goals World Cup, og ellers så sidder vi lige her. Ja, så tak for det.
You know, you're dealing with grassroots activists when the time schedule just never matched, right? So we're done. That was the entire parade. We have the room until 2:45 at least, and there is a bar outside, so you can go and get something to drink, and then maybe if the speakers would like to come back up here. Now? Yes, now. Just so everyone can see you. Thank you. Yes, so we have Bea from Useful Life for Communities, and Clara from Global Goals World Cup, and Anne from Mia, and Sally from Aarhus Krisecenter. And they're going to stick around for a little while so you can come and talk to them, and maybe if you want to somehow become active, they can tell you how. And go get something at the bar. And then when you feel like you're done with that, there's still workshops downstairs and exhibitions to go and see. So thank you for now, and see you around.